The Society for Vascular Surgery, led by immediate past presidents and current presidents, decided to create a historic interview series for those who have contributed to vascular surgery in the United States, and more recently the honorary members from the international community. Led by Dr. Jimmy Yao as our chairman, joined by other members. We have done more than 70 interviews now, and today we have the great privilege and honor of interviewing Dr. We always call him Taki, so if you'll allow me to do that, it's easier just to say that,
yes.
Balas.
More easy to.
From Athens, and we're very honored to have you, Professor Balas, with us today. And I do want to acknowledge that you aren't the most senior person we've interviewed, because Dr. Alan Callow and Dr. Ben Eisman actually were older than you are when they were interviewed. So, but we know, the reason I bring up the age and the factor, we know you are one of the most experienced vascular surgeons to be interviewed. So we're extremely grateful that Professor Balas is here and will be interviewed today. Dr. Yao is with me, Dr. Gregory is with me, so they'll chime in and ask a few questions for you to answer as well.
We'll be very happy to.
Okay. What we would appreciate it if you would just start off by telling us a little bit about your youth. It's always a good place to start, you know. Tell us about where you were born and your parents and so forth.
I was born in Kalamata. Kalamata is in the southern part of Peloponnese. And brought up in Athens. My father was a physician, and my uncle also. So early on, I was thinking to study medicine. I was very keen to become a physician. So I graduated in '53 from the medical school after serving 2 years in the army because of the problem that we have the communists. And then I entered in the internship in general surgery in '53, and finished the specialty after 6 years in the major academic clinic in Greece, first surgical clinic of Athens University Medical School, under Professor Nicholas Christeas, who was pupil of Leris. And it is a very interesting coincidence because at that time in 1938 in Strasbourg, in Leris school was my mentor Christeas and my future mentor Michael DeBakey.
Well, you know,
So I have a picture of this group. On the right of Leris is my Greek professor, on the left DeBakey. This is famous picture.
Yes.
When I was resident, I studied extensively the literature, and I was impressed with the achievements in cardiovascular surgery in the United States, especially in Houston, Texas. So I tried to get into Houston. First, I got an appointment as a research fellow in the New England Medical Center under Alan Callow. I prepared my master's in science, in surgery, and then I was appointed clinical fellow in Houston, Texas. I was the first Greek to be accepted. And then I worked very hard because I fulfilled my dream. I felt extremely happy to be among these giants. And so DeBakey liked me, and so he gave me the privilege to be his first assistant. Special privilege for a foreigner, not qualified in America, and to be he liked me also, George Morris, and Denton Cooley too. They liked me very much. When I finished, I came back in '63.
So you had 3 years in Houston.
Yeah, and I was the first Greek to introduce modern vascular surgery in Greece, and I was very lucky, and God helped me to perform the first major vascular operation for the first time in Greece, very successful.
Did your former mentor help you get the position in the university when you
No,
returned?
because I left as a resident and came back, and he gave me, and my mentor was impressed because he told me when I came back, Takis, Balas, be careful. If you fail doing these procedures, you will go back to Houston. So be very careful. So I was very careful and very happy and also successful. I made the first femoral-popliteal venous bypass, the first embolectomies of Fogarty's catheter, venous thrombectomies, the first Leris femoral bypass, and my professor would like to help me, but he said, "Oh, it's very difficult for me. Go ahead." The first excision of abdominal aneurysm. And finally, among the more spectacular cases, in '67, I did the first reimplantation of complete amputated extremity in Europe. The second, because the first was done in '62 in Mass General Hospital by Molten.
Right.
And but in my case, I have the provision because I developed a special audiovisual department, and at 6:30 in the morning started the operation, and I had the girl to take a color film of the whole procedure when the extremity was separated on the table, and they take film of all the procedure, and we follow up for 7 years. And in '72, I present this film in the spectacular session of the American College of Surgeons in Atlantic City. Yeah. And I had stand ovation. It was very impressive. And these all things helped me very much for my academic career, actually.
You know, let me just ask you a quick question about the replantation, because one area that is of particular interest to me is the venous return, if you will. And with the replantation, did you repair the vein before the artery, do you remember, or did you repair the artery first?
First, the artery. I have to notice that I was prepared to do this operation because 2 years before I met Dr. Horn, who was an orthopedic surgeon from England, who joined the communist China. He left and he made there with his wife, and then he was chief of orthopedic surgeon in Beijing. So he was invited by the Chinese group, communist group of Greece, to give a lecture. So my professor said, "Go and be careful because the police is around. Be careful with the connection because at the time it was very anti-communistic, the feelings." So I went, I translate the lecture, he presented implantation, and after that we had a dinner, and he gave me many details. Yeah. So actually I was prepared for this. I prepared first the artery, and when I started having backflow from the veins, then I did venous anastomosis.
Yeah, no, well, thank you very much. We're glad to know that. Yes. You know, Professor Balas, one of the reputations that you have internationally, and probably in Greece too, is that you are the master organizer of international meetings, and you have been responsible for so many meetings, and there are many of us who have had the privilege of being with you in your country, and very impressed with your organization. When did you, how did you develop the idea of having international meetings?
In Houston, I had the opportunity to meet many personalities from abroad. It was an international center. So, and because of my character, I would like to communicate with the people and to try to improve things. And so I thought it was very important for our country and for our medical community and vascular, to have people come in and to have congresses. So I decided to organize this, and one of a very important congress, as you know, it was first I established Michael DeBakey Society.
Right.
I have contacted 1,000 people.
What year was that? About
in
1965?
66.
66, okay.
And he organized a congress, international congress of Michael DeBakey Society in Athens. And I invited very important personalities. I invited Frank Spencer to give the main lecture, but Frank was very busy. So I told DeBakey, do you mind to ask Favaloro? Because I didn't know what his relation with the Cleveland Clinic said. I said, okay, Favaloro is that fine for me. And so I came René Favaloro, and he gave the lecture on the aortocoronary bypass, very impressive. And since we became very good friends with René Favaloro. And after that, I organized, as you know, the international innate International Union of Angiology Congress was a very success with a spectacular opening in the...
Yeah, we won't...
And then in 81, the International Cardiovascular Society.
Yeah.
And
we won't mention any country, but...
in 1985, the International Congress with many personalities. Among them was the senior Chinese cardiovascular Professor Wu, Professor Petrovsky, the professor, and many other congresses. And I try to bring personalities because this was very good for Greece.
Well, and when you had the opening ceremonies, you emphasized to us what Lord Byron had said, that we're all Greeks.
Oh, yeah.
And you really brought that to everybody. And
actually, we took advantage of the places,
right.
As you know. And the Herodotus of Atticus, this famous ancient theater on the foot of Acropolis, it was very impressive to have the opening ceremony because all the people appreciate the ancient Greek civilization. So they thought very, very happy and very emotional to be there. And,
well, as you know, we do have Roger Gregory with us as a past president of the Michael E. DeBakey International Surgical Society. He was had that responsibility 10 years ago, so it's still alive and well. It just met in Houston, as you know.
I got the idea from Cooley DeBakey, Cooley Society had before. So I went to DeBakey's sister, Louise and Selma, and I told, is there any DeBakey Society to honor? He said, no. And so Louise said, why don't you take the initiative to organize? I said, okay. When I came back, please give me the list of the fellows, 1,000 of them. I communicate. And another reason, in order to promote this idea, I took an absence of 6 weeks, 2 months from the university, and I visited all the South American countries, and meeting the fellows, the previous fellows, in Caracas, in everywhere. And so I introduced into the idea. So we established a society.
You know, you mentioned the International Union of Angiology. Angiology is a specialty that we don't really appreciate in the United States like you do in Europe. Please tell us a little bit about your relationship with the International Union of Angiology.
Yeah. I joined this International Union of Angiology was established by a French group in '54. In the beginning, it was also involved Leris, and later on, they separated. They make the cardiovascular, and they left angiology to some practitioners, some phlebologists, and so forth. So I joined the society in '64 in Paris during the Congress, and so I slowly involved, and I proposed to them to organize a Congress in '80. At that time, in the Constitution, it was written that the person who organized a Congress international would be the president of the. So I became in Athens the president of the union, and so I thought I had to reorganize it, to make more international, more open, French-minded, with the dominant language French. So I try, and we accomplished, we we prepare a new constitution in spite of the reaction of the French representative who would like to keep French.
Yeah.
So I have the support of other people, and so it became international. And the next step was to have a new journal. The society has as its official journal an Français en Géologie, something like that. So I say, no, international geology. Only English was a lot of reaction for French speaking because English is international language, so we pass it. And this decision was taken in Mayo Clinic in '83 when we have an International Congress of Geology. And it was very supportive. John Seffer, the Dean of Medical School at Mayo,
Yeah.
and the other people. Glovitsky was not there, it was young people at that time. So we established this journal, and it became international. I put in the faculty, in the editorial board, represented for all the countries. And the philosophy was not to be only excellent, to accept the excellent papers, but the philosophy was to receive papers, even no good quality, from all over the countries. From Bulgaria, Romania, because to have reflection what is going on in these countries.
Yeah.
And for the first time, we have the Russian issue, edited by Petrovsky. And he was very grateful because he said, first time they invite us to present this because of the, the Cold War, and it was very fixed. So I try to advance this international meaning. And for this reason, in spite of that my politically I belong to the right side, always, traditionally. But in spite of this, I try to have relation with in all the spectrum, with the Russians during the Cold War, with Chinese. I was the first Greek to visit China, even of the few Europeans.
Sure.
This was in 66, in 76 actually.
Well, you had to be proud of your effort because the International Union of Angiology meeting in Athens in 2008 was one of the most successful meetings of that organization.
Yeah.
It impressed many of us who had been before, but again, your organization was just superb. And let me also say for the record that we've appreciated your efforts to involve those who have little representation or no representation. And I can remember over the years you always went out of your way to make sure that I met the doctor from Bulgaria or the doctor from Russia.
I try hard to introduce this because these people, because of the political situation, was unprivileged actually. So we try to give and to be very friendly, even to cover their expenses. My idea was that you have to be very friendly. In order to develop the field, you had to have friendly relation with the people. I mean, this was the idea, and so we have a warm
Do you think some of this came from Dr. DeBakey? Do you think that your time with him and developing the international...
Because DeBakey he has this mentality, he was international minded. He told me many times, because he liked me very much, and he told me that I tried to help all these people. The Russians, he opened the way, and all these South Americans and Asians. I opened the way to Asia, and with the Japanese we had very good relations. And so I visited China 7 times. And I was very friendly. I met the Minister of Public Health. And I have to tell you that I asked the Minister of Public Health of China to send for the first time Chinese cardiovascular people to American Cardiovascular Congress in San Francisco in 79, I think it was international in San Francisco. And he told me, Professor Balas, we trust you. We are good.
Right.
You are a very good friend of China. I sent three of them.
Yeah.
Chen, who was the man who the implantation, Wu, and another thing.
There are certain things that we always remember. One almost surreal experience, I think, was with you when you took us to Paleokastritsis on Corfu. And we looked at the setting sunset over the Ionian Sea with the monks and a glass of wine under the bougainvillea.
And you had a dinner with the bishop.
Right.
Yeah. And also I will remind you, because always I try to give some importance to the meetings, and so I organize at the end of the meeting, international meetings, visit to Kos.
Yes.
To visit the Hippocrates.
Oh.
You remember in one of these visits, we went, it was a Congress in Rhodes, and from there go by boat.
Yes.
And we visit Asclepion of Hippocrates, and we took a picture that is in the city. And we're sitting on the marbles.
Right.
You with Giorgio Biasi.
Right. Yeah, Ralph De Palma, I think.
Palma.
Yeah. No,
It was very
good.
interesting.
Well,
interesting.
they really turned out the support for you on Kos. We know that
Because
too.
we try always to have very friendly relation, to be in friendly atmosphere, to promote this. And this is the treasure for me is that through the years I have many friends all over the world, and especially the United States. And I have to come back many years earlier. And always I remember Professor Yao. For me, was my hero. Because I have to mention that I met Professor Yao, do you believe when? In 64.
64.
When
That's way back.
Professor Yao
That's right.
was in the small non-invasive lab, Irvin. Irvin was my good friend because I met him in Houston when I was a fellow. Irvin visited Houston before taking charge of the chair. He was appointed, and he decided to spend 3 months going around to the medical centers. He stopped, and of course, people didn't treat him very well, especially Stanley Crawford, who was very difficult with the foreigners. And when I visited with him, he said, Dr. Balas, I would like to see you have a very nice man and a young man who run a laboratory. So I went, and what I was impressed, Jim at that time make the ankle brachial index. It was a breakthrough, you know.
Yes, surely.
So when I came back, I correspond with Parker, you know, Parker. I say, Mr. Parker, I would like to have this ultrasonic probe. Say, we have not enough. I gave to Professor Yao and Dr. Yao. So please, so after a few months, he wrote me, okay, I have one, I have some, I'm coming to Europe to introduce. So he stopped at Athens to Hilton Hotel. He gave me, and I started a lot of work. It was really the first thing in Greece.
Yeah.
It's so impressive. I gave the lectures to the students, and I brought and like professor, put a patient and put him. Was impressed because they hear the flow.
We would appreciate Dr. Yao commenting at this point. Please, Jimmy.
Very.
Well, it was wonderful to
This
see you.
was probably his first and very big contribution, and you know how many people took advantage of this. So I'm very grateful, Jim, because I meet you after so many years. I have to mention that it was one very important. And also I have this with me because at the time they call me in many cities to see consultation. I have with me always examine and make a lot of work. We make I work only on collagen diseases, on Raynaud's syndrome, and I used to do stellate ganglion blocks before, and we trace with the probe the arterial flow in the digital. We make some pictures, and then before, and you see after the stellate ganglion block, you see increase the flow. It was very important, very simple. So I try to promote also besides of the vascular surgery and angiology too. And I develop capillaroscopy also. We have wonderful films on capillaroscopy function. I tried because I thought it was very important, parallel to go angiology, medical angiology and vascular surgery too.
Sure.
It was nice to see you again. We met in St. Mary Hospital.
Oh yeah, yes.
You came over to Professor Irvine. You remember him.
Yes.
And I would like to ask you about the European history in vascular surgery.
Yes.
This is the book you wrote a beautiful chapter.
Yes.
The chapter is absolutely wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Emphasize
thank you,
about the contribution of European vascular surgery.
Yes, I try to.
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit more on the European history?
Actually, as you know, the study of vascular disease starts from the ancient Greece, actually. Hippocrates, if you have the chance to read the original text, actually. My father bought Littré. There is a 10-volume Ouvre d'Hippocrate. It's written in French, in the original Greek. It's very impressive, the way that he described venous disease, vascular disease, and also all the others of the Galilean, others. So there was a lot of tradition, and also in Europe they developed the study of vascular disease actually, and in the 20th century, the contribution of the French school was great actually. Leris was a wise man, and he conceived all the ideas. Even he conceived the idea to treat Leris syndrome by excise, the aortic bifurcation. By that time, there was not available a substitute.
Well, you know, if I may just comment about that famous picture we've already alluded to. In that picture, as you'll remember, is John Kuhnlen, another Frenchman who was responsible for
it was in this picture, it
endarterectomy.
was Kuhnlen who performed the first femoral-popliteal bypass. It was Sido Santos, the teacher of our friend, and was another, the Becky Fontaine,
Yes, Fontaine.
the successor of all the people who later developed the candidates. The Becky was very grateful to Leris, and he mentioned very often actually. And so actually, from Europe, brought the development everywhere. And for this reason, I wrote a paper, a prominent American vascular surgeon born in Europe. There is a connection between the European vascular surgery and the American. They brought to the United States, and then from the United States, they broke because this became famous. As, for example, the Takats was a famous, was born. And so he brought back the knowledge, and Rob was English, he was developed, and there are many of these. I just thought it was very interesting to write and to see this Glovitsky and from the youngest. But there are about 20, I think, a lot of things that, so there is bringing back the light. Another very, very important contribution of the American surgery after the war, World War II, was that they trained hundreds of young Europeans to vascular surgery. And today, and the past 20 years, all the prominent cardiovascular surgeons in Europe had training in the United States, at least 95%. If you look, everybody has it, even the English, they felt, they thought that it was obligatory to spend a year in the United States in order to come back and to be qualified to get a position. So it's very important, the contribution of the American surgery. So personally, I believe, and many others are very grateful to our American teachers. They gave us the opportunity to study, otherwise it was not possible.
Please, Joe.
Well, you did mention about geyser detectors, and you also mentioned Chris Sarin from his country to America.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned me was in St. Mary and came
Yes.
over here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a very good chapter. I enjoy reading it.
Yeah.
And congratulations. It's
thank you.
very scholarly done.
Yeah. The last years after I slowed down my practice, I thought it was nice to write some historical data. Right. So, and when they invite me, I gave lectures on this. I said, I have no now any more experience, clinical, so I try to give some historical data. And
even in endovascular surgery, Europe have a lot of contribution.
And then also I have to mention that it's not egoistic, but I have to tell in 1995 something, I don't remember exactly, I met Criado. He was in a meeting of the International Union of Angiology in Paris. I said, Dr. Criado, how do you think to organize a site in the vascular surgery? Why don't you speak with Ted Dietrich? Because with Ted we were together fellow in Houston in '67. I say it's a good idea. I will tell. So when he came back, called Ted. He said, I met Panagiotis Balas, and he said, and Ted was hesitant. He said, oh, another society, very different, so forth. And finally, they decided. And after a few months, we met in Toulouse, and to establish the Society of Endovascular Surgery. And it's very interesting from the historical point of view that Vith conceived the idea to establish endovascular society, but he was left behind because it was 1 week later. Already the Dietrich put in the notary, I don't know how it is, the name.
Right.
So after that, it was not possible to duplicate. So we decided and we organized, and in the first executive board, I was vice president actually, and also introduced endovascular surgery in Greece. In 1996, we did the first endovascular treatment of AAA actually.
Yeah. You know, we've talked about writing and your writing. You've been an editor, particularly of the International Angiology. How do you look at the various journals today, and particularly our Journal of Vascular Surgery? What's your opinion of that journal, and would you encourage your young people to submit to the Journal of Vascular Surgery?
Yeah, I think it's the Bible actually. I like very much, and I read it because I receive complimentary issues, and I always read with, and I'm very astonished with the accomplishment, and I mean young people doing these magnificent operations and all this data, and well, good written, and with, I'm impressed actually. I don't read any more other American journals. I used to do but exclusively because it's still my interest in vascular surgery,
Yeah.
even if no practice.
Please join.
How about contribution from Russia in vascular surgery? We seems to be not know much about Russia, especially when you talk about endovascular graft. They say, you know, they are the first one did it.
I think that what I can say that it was from Kiev, from Ukraine, who present the first and arterial stenting. And this man was participate in '85 in our Congress in Athens. And he present this paper. But because of his bad English and very bad slides, we did not pay a lot of attention. We just overlook this. And later I realized that this was a man and was a pioneer. And also another pioneer was he was academician, professor of radiology in All Union Research Institute in Moscow, who put put a cover stent in the iliac artery. He didn't speak any English, and so he didn't publish this, and he didn't come to. He was invited by Dietrich later on, but he was not able to speak any. And this was very important because he was an advisor for the station space, and so this I think it was and this man had received support from the engineers who were for the space, I mean high technology in order to develop this. But it was not very popularized actually. But another important contribution to the Russian is the replantation. Replantation digits, and this is Krylov, you met Krylov.
Yes.
This is a really excellent work, this pioneer. And another important man, Yanker. Yanker is who was assistant to Krylov, and then has a 2 years fellowship to the United States, to Debeke, and he was in
Anatoly Prokhorsky.
no, Prokhorsky is an older one.
No.
Is forgot the name.
Yeah.
Very young man, and he developed Chasov. Chasov was a professor of cardiology who developed streptokinase, the first he used in myocardial infarction, Chasov. And he was with a physician against the war. And he split a Nobel Prize with an American physician, I don't remember, from Boston, from Mass General. There are two of them, split. And this Chasov became Minister of Public Health, and they gave to him a lot of money. All the workers in the USA, in the Russian, in the Soviet Union, they gave 1 day salary to collect the money. With this money, they built a very important cardiovascular institute. And Chasov was the director of this.
Yeah.
And I invite him in Rhodes in one of the congresses.
Right.
Chasov.
You have said you have visited 100-some medical centers.
Yeah, I will
give
tell.
us an impression on it.
I will tell you also a story about in one of the congresses in Athens, I think in '85. I was invited Debeke, Wu from China, and Petrovsky. Petrovsky was a past minister of Brezhnev, and he was the chief medical officer during the invasion of Hungary of the Soviet Union. He was very famous. So he was sitting, and Wu didn't speak to Petrovsky because he has, and Debeke put them to speak again actually, and so it's very interesting.
mentorship is very important. Can you tell us your mentor who guide you in your career?
Actually, my Greek mentor was Professor Christeas. I don't like him. Now it's, I respect his memory, and he didn't help me a lot. At that time, the Greek professors were like gods, not interesting. So we try to find ourselves the way. The real mentor for me was the Becky. The Becky liked me very much. He appreciated. He told me, his sister told me that is the only man to thought to make it. And during one Thanksgiving dinner, I was in Houston, and he invited me to his house. And in this dinner was the Becky, his wife, the president of the Baylor, and one of his son. At the end of the lunch, he said to the president, I don't remember his name, you know that Panagiotis Balas is one of my sons. I love him.
Yeah.
And I cried, and
Yeah.
you know, I felt it. And he liked me very much, actually. Yes. And for this reason, and also you will see in this, I gave a lecture on memorial for the Baker in Biazzi's Congress in memorial, and I pick up, and I have a lot of pictures you will find, Jim, in this, in the memorial from when he was baby until so it's very interesting, probably somewhere to be published this. I think you will find this very interesting. In some day when there is some memorials of the important people, you can take this because I collect unpublished papers from his private files. It is not available actually. And also it's very important in order to see because the pupils have to be grateful to the teachers. This is fundamental. It was a Greek, Hippocratic, Hippocrates said in the authority. So I felt very deeply, and also I was very grateful to the Beckett, to Cooley, all these things. And so during one of the Beckett's Congress in Houston, when the Beckett was in Greece, during the Congress, I brought him to a sculptor, a famous one. There was a famous Greek, who was a member of the French Academy, very famous. And I said, Dr. Becky, I'd like to have your hands to. Okay. We went to the house of the artist, and he put in the plaster for an hour. Was it like, I say, I'm sorry. No, it's all right. He liked this. So he came up with a very nice bronze hand. And I have 3 of these. One I kept for myself, I have in my files. I told my daughter, this is very important to keep for your life. One, the Minister of Public Health, and the other, the Becky. So in the next meeting in Houston, I had the hand with me. And we have the dinner of the executive board. He was also a French professor of there. And then at the end, I said, Dr. Becky, when I was a fellow, I remember that you always complained that, God damn it, if I have a third head, I do the surgery myself. I don't need you stupid say. And so it's time to give you the third hand. I gave you. Everybody was laughing. It was very nice standing this. And so he took, and then I followed him to his car. Said, Dr. Becky, to help you today. No, thanks, I will. I was looking for a long time for this hand. All these tricks, because I felt so grateful, to him to live an unknown person, unknown, without any recommendation, and to go to work and to be close to him, and through the years to become, I feel
But you
very
have,
emotional.
you
very
have
emotional.
also passed that on to many who have followed you. And as Dr. DeBakey is your mentor, you've been a mentor to many people in Greece. And Elias Bastones and
Yes,
Manos
yes.
Pikoulis and a
Yes.
number of people we can think of.
Yes, many of
You
them.
have to be proud of them too.
Yes, I do. I am. And also I established Vascular Society in Greece in order to, Angiology Society in order to help this and to channel them.
You are the father of vascular surgery.
Because of the age.
What would you tell the young surgeon now? What would be your advice?
Actually, they don't ask my advice. This is not complain. It's very interesting with the young people. They don't appreciate, and you imagine that they organize a congress of the Learning Society of Vascular Surgery, and they don't give me a special invitation.
So,
Disappointing.
yeah.
But I think it's the mentality of the young people.
Sure.
They found, the reason is they found already everything. They don't appreciate that many people work hard to do these things. And
With the economic
Yeah.
challenges in Greece in recent years, has there been any talk about limiting the
Oh, yes.
endovascular devices?
Oh, yes, yes. There is a limitation, yeah, yes. There is a limitation. There is a limitation.
Well,
Can you think of anything else? Dr. Gregory, you have been very quiet down there. Do you have any questions for Professor Balas?
We just appreciate you coming, and it's been an excellent interview.
I feel like a brother with you because you were training in Houston. We are.
well, we thank you for coming.
It's an honor for me. I really appreciate. It's an honor for and a great pleasure because I met very good friends. Jim for almost 50 years now. I don't remember how
Long
many.
time. It was
And
just wonderful to see you again.
Norman was very supportive for all my effort.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful and very grateful to Dr.
Well,
Roder for
Norman
this.
is our Mr. History.
Oh yes,
You
he
really-
supported every. When I had to do something, I had to be. He advised me, helped me, and
Yeah.
brought people, and was always present in the front line. And I'm very grateful and
It's been a pleasure.
to
And,
Lois because of the hospitality, and I feel so close with the American friends. So it's,
Thank you again.
I feel belonging to the great family American.
Thank you
vascular
again, Taki.
surgeons.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very grateful.